Hey guys, welcome back to What Next? And this week we're diving into 10 Things I Hate About You. Now, again, if you haven't seen this movie, do yourself a favor and please go watch this one. It's actually on Netflix right now as we speak, which is actually how I came to this one. I had a completely different movie in mind for this week, but I came across this one and I said, you know what? I probably haven't seen this since it came out or right after it came out. It came out right as I was exiting high school, to kind of date myself. But I hadn't seen it in so many years, and I figured, you know what? Let me look into this one. So, looked into this one. I actually found out that they are planning a sequel to this. Looks like they're planning 3 sequels. So, it sounds like those are about to go forward. It's going to visit some of these characters later in life. I guess kind of seeing exactly how their characters would have ended up in a sense. So, I figured, let's go ahead and do this movie before the sequels come out, and then maybe once all 3 of those are done, we can go from there and see what next for these characters. So let's dive into it. So this one, I'm going to do a 2-parter, so stick around for both parts. That way I'm not here forever and boring you guys, right? But we're going to do 2 parts. Cast is pretty big, as you can see even from the poster here. You've got 8 main characters, and you got a couple of sub-characters that are pretty good to the plot line as well. So let's jump in. So now, if you've seen the movie, you know who these guys are. If you need a refresher, go watch it again and then kind of come back and we'll see what's what. So, after watching this, I started getting ideas in my head about what was next for all of these going forward. So, let's start with the first and main character. We have Kat, played by Julia Stiles. Fantastic job movie, by the way. We leave off with her character not necessarily exiting high school. We didn't really see her technically graduate. We did see that she got accepted to a college that her dad was not a fan of. But I'm curious to see what kind of happens with her, because she was kind of not necessarily... She was hugely antisocial. She had, I think, essentially one friend. But now that she's kind of let a couple of walls down, she let, Patrick in. And they're kind of a couple at the end. So I'm kind of curious as to where she goes from here. Does she end up going to college in New York like she wanted? Does she end up staying close to home because, circumstances have kind of changed for her? She's got a better relationship with her father, with her sister. She technically has, I would say, a boyfriend at the end. So I'm just curious as to what would have happened with her. I think she probably still would have gone to college in New York because she was set on that was her path in life. But again, with all the changes that transpired in this movie, who knows? Maybe she'd have stayed closer to home and then did her college and then gone into who knows? She might have gone into the corporate world. She could have ended up starting the girl band that she wanted, and that could have taken off. They did kind of leave her with a couple of different avenues to go down, so that would have been good to see what would have happened with her. Next, we got Patrick, played by the late, great Heath Ledger. Obviously, if they do these sequels, I'm curious to see what they do with his character. I don't know if they would just talk about him or maybe recast him. I don't know how essential his character is to kind of what they're going to be doing. But with him, same thing. Senior in high school, you don't technically see any of these kids graduate. You don't see a graduation scene at all. Or at least not that I saw. So maybe it's a deleted scene somewhere that they never did her show, or maybe I never saw it. But I'm curious with him because when we first meet him, he's definitely I would say a troubled youth. Everybody has these stories about him that, he was in trouble with this, or he eats duck, stuff like that. So, he's clearly not, big into academics or kind of like his future-wise sense like that. He seemed more of a, kind of like maybe to where he'd end up like a blue-collar type dude, which no problem with that at all. But I'm just curious what would have happened with him now. Because, again, he ended up lowering his, emotional walls, getting to know Kat, essentially, I guess, falling in love with her at the end. So I'm just curious what would have happened with him after this as well. He kind of has, ends the story with the girlfriend. He's kind of like a softer side of himself. Or even like at school life. Because it seems, I'm guessing at the time this movie ends, they probably have maybe 4 weeks of school left. So I'm wondering how this works moving forward with him and where exactly his path goes after. Because even if Kat goes off to college, Does he follow her? Does he convince her to stay close to home? How does that impact the relationship? Or even so, where does he go from here? Like, where do they show him going? Like, does he try to go to college? Does he just jump into the workforce? Because once you're out of high school, you got to figure out what to do with yourself. So it would have been interesting to see what kind of avenue they had his character go down and what he would have ended up doing. I personally think the two of them, had they tried to find a way to keep their relationship going, that would have been interesting. Maybe he does go to New York with her, says, I'm going to get out of this town because, he's that kind of has a bad reputation. Maybe they go to New York, he works, she goes to school type thing. Or who knows? It could have been vice versa back at home. She could still be going to college close to home. He's working, that just I think would have been a good relationship to see how that actually would have moved forward. Next, we have Cameron, all the way over to the right there. Cameron's played by Joseph Gordon-Levitt, great actor, done a lot of big things. If you guys don't know who he is by now, just give him a check out. So he's a senior in the movie. Obviously, his main part of the story is that, he falls in love with, Bianca over here, who's a sophomore. So I'm curious with him, too, because, they do say it in the beginning, so clearly he's the son of an army parent. They call him an army brat. So I'm curious as to what he would have done after this, because does he stay in the city that they're in, or does he have to pick up and move? Did he have prior college plans? Like, obviously the movie doesn't go that deep into what his future plans were. The whole story was just about trying to get everything around, him set up to where he can start dating Bianca. But yeah, I think it's just interesting to see where his character would have gone. Would he have stayed back? Because, now at the end he gets the girl, but obviously he's going to graduate. She's going to still be in. She still has 2 years left of high school. He's going to be out in the real world. We all know that age difference could be a problem. So I'm just curious what would have happened post this, because as soon as he graduates, I think all that would have hit home. Like, I'm still dating someone who's got 2 years left in high school. Clearly that's not going to work. He's got to go to college and do his thing, be gone for probably 4 years. So yeah, I'm just pretty curious as to see where they felt they would have gone with that. Or who knows, maybe it would have been something to where he'd have gone to college in the area. They still kind of would have dated here and there. Who knows if that would have lasted at all. I don't know, because Bianca still got high school left, and, a whole lot of things happen when they're in very different venues. So I think that would have been interesting to see how they had his character progress. After that, we'll move on to Bianca. So Bianca was the, one of the main things. She had Cameron on her. She also had Joey, which is right here in the center, on her. So they're they set this whole thing in motion, especially with Michael. Michael kind of helps Cameron figure out a way to break down the walls, because obviously the two girls, they're not allowed to date. Everybody knows that rule about them. Like, their dad does not allow them to date. So with her character at the end of everything, I was curious as to what happens next with her, because her whole kind of high school dynamics kind of changes. She loses her best friend in the process of all this, but yet she does gain Cameron. She sees Joey for, kind of the butthead or bully that he is. So I'm just wondering what would have happened with her, because now, again, after this, obviously Cameron graduates. She sees that he's not going to be around. He may be going to college. So what happens with her dynamic? So her whole school life's kind of flipped upside down. The other cool girl that was her best friend is no longer her best friend. So where would her path of high school would have gone as she kind of makes her way through these last 2 years, and, the cliques and, people talking about her post all of this. So I'm just curious as to see how that would have impacted her going through this last couple years of school. But yeah, so that's what I got for these main characters right now. Follow for part 2. I'm going to go ahead and follow up on the back end of the rest of the characters. So thanks for watching, guys. See you next time.